John Carpenter is probably my biggest inspiration as a filmmaker. He's got this casual, laid-back approach to storytelling that manages to be thoughtful without the smug self-importance that gets to the heads of those caught up in their own fart-smelling auteurism. He just cuts through the crap of snooty intellectualism to get to the core idea of what makes his films and concepts so appealing to begin with. Whether it be the ambiguity of Halloween, the subtle world building of Escape from New York, or the grotesque simplicity of The Thing, for his time he never truly got the credit he deserved for celebrating the pure sensationalism of cinema until his cult admiration in later years. But for as much as I value his subdued, unique style, there is one film that probably goes to explain why he had such a polarizing reputation during his active years, because it just so happened to be the film that put an end to his filmmaking career. So let's talk about it. Ghosts of Mars is hypnotically strange to say the least. Sure, it was harmless schlock that's goofy and eccentric enough to be watchable, yet I think it can be best described as a gloriously incoherent montage of Carpenter's entire career. When it's not behaving like, whatever it is, the film stitches together fragments of Escape from New York, The Fog, Assault on Precinct 13, and In the Mouth of Madness, which to be fair, in its own right, isn't actually a bad choice of films to amalgamate into one movie. Although there's something to be said about effectively ripping off your own filmography because you become so jaded by Hollywood's excessive pressure to capitalize on trends and pop culture that you inadvertently flip your own film into a massive fuck you to Hollywood, to which the film inspires you to simply pack up and escape the amoral artificial zombie apocalypse that Hollywood truly is. For the record, it wasn't Carpenter's final directorial effort. He actually attempted a comeback 9 years ago with The Ward, which isn't terrible, but its plot takes many striking similarities to Session 9 and Identity that it's kinda shameless. And since then, Carpenter resides as an admirably decent composer, living happily in the shadow of his former self. Don't get me wrong, I still have big admiration for the guy, but with his cult status came the inevitable, how do I capture the same kind of magic again? And so what Ghost of Mars ultimately feels like is this angry, frustrated cinematic equivalent to throwing bloody paint at a canvas. This reminds me of something. I mean, maybe throwing paint angrily at a canvas was the point, and the film is actually some sort of manifestation of Carpenter's midlife crisis, where seeing a bunch of pissed off crazy people sticking sharp objects into themselves symbolizes the future of 21st century society, and Hollywood in particular. You know what, fuck it, maybe he was onto something. Perhaps this wasn't just some oddball guilty pleasure of his, but some abstract punk rocker art installation commentating on the state of our superficial existence. Or, well, most likely it was just a badly misjudged attempt at tongue-in-cheek sci-fi action horror. The plot basically follows a police squad situated on a colonized Mars where they're tasked with transporting a notorious criminal, only to discover an ancient Martian civilization has been unleashed and have possessed the inhabitants and turned them all into sadist monsters. You know, as you do. It's no surprise, of course, this was originally pitched as a Snake Plissken sequel called Escape from Mars, until the failure of Escape from LA saw Plissken's character turned into Ice Cube's Desolation Williams, while the rest of the plot apparently remains mostly intact. The film predominantly comprises of jarring transitions where a cast of headless chickens walk about an empty and flimsy artificial production set until the Hellraiser cosplayers arrive, leading to some fun, serviceable action sequences where people unceremoniously die, and the film effortlessly acts like I'm supposed to give a damn. I actually thought some of the deaths were kinda funny. In his autobiography, Carpenter explained that the film was originally meant to be taken as a throwback to 80s action flicks like Commando, Rambo 2 and Predator, yet the stiff, awkward performances from the entire cast only go to show that nobody here knew whether to take this seriously or not.
That's beautiful!
As a result, it reduces the whole film down to a monotone gangster shootout where you wouldn't be mistaken for thinking David Ayer had directed the thing due to its woeful lack of self-awareness. Now, it does have this interesting premise of opening Pandora's box to give it a hint of In the Mouth of Madness, where people are driven to some sort of unexplainable madness, and upon death, that madness is then passed on to another host, kinda like the movie Fallen, where an evil angel is passed on by touch and possesses people into murder. Seriously, that's a real movie. I know it turns out to be the souls of aliens that lived on Mars, but with the whole smoke aesthetic mixed with the bizarre self-mutilation, it gives it an unusual mystique to a conflict we're never given any real elaboration on. There's even a plot point established where Ballard is addicted to these drug mints, which I assumed was going to be relevant to the fact that the entire narrative is a flashback told solely from her perspective, where maybe she's an unreliable narrator and is in fact revealed to be the crazy hallucinating one who killed everybody, and we're led to believe she's like a Kaiser Soze type character, before another twist where her story is actually true, but it's already too late to do anything about it.
Let's just kick some ass.
I interpreted these drug mints as some sort of weird counter-effect to Rage, given the visual juxtaposition between the tranquil water imagery and the aggressive alien fish army, as if to say that overcoming her possession is like overcoming anger, hatred, or some sort of potential weakness within her, but nothing like that is ever established, although I'd like to think there's something to it that's completely overlooked. Now, with that said, I actually find the main antagonist to have a certain amount of threat to him, at least until he opens his mouth. Yeah, I have no clue why they thought that was a good idea. Although, that's not to say the film is entirely devoid of tension. Early on, there's an ominous unrest that induces a relative paranoia similar to The Thing, but without the characterization to make us feel sympathetic. I guess there is something oppressive about everything where it lingers on the dystopian, which makes sense considering its roots as a Snake Plissken film. And given the conflict is Martians looking to reclaim their rightful land that's been taken from them, there's a rebellious feel to the entire thing, emphasized by Carpenter's rock music composition and a disorientating editing style that makes fight scenes feel practically like a fucking mosh pit when you think about it. If you really want to give it a glimmer of cultural subtext, you could say this all lends itself to the whole idea that maybe we're the villains and these are just misunderstood natives fighting for their home at the hands of a stone-cold militant society. However, for as much intellectual credit as I could try to give it, it's dismissed by one tiny perpetual contradiction in its overarching logic, where, let me just see, the film forgets that they're fucking ghosts! Like I said earlier, when it's blatantly established on numerous occasions that the spirits will simply search for new hosts upon death, it becomes extremely selective with this information, considering how the characters continuously mow down dozens of creatures, rarely with any consequence. Granted, there is a welcome nihilism indicative of Halloween and the Fog, where their inability to actually kill the creatures makes for a unique premise for problem solving, but when the lore is aggressively absent and unexplored, the film has no wiggle room to develop any compelling solution, bar nuking the fucking town as if there's any logic in that possibly working. Although my overthinking side doesn't dismiss it entirely, because maybe it just goes to reinforce the whole nihilism angle with mankind's futility and impracticality to deal with the incomprehensible. Let's go with that. I mean, it did use In the Mouth of Madness after all. So regardless, knowing that it just overshot its deadpan tone during production, only when you start to completely detach yourself from specific plot contradictions can you really embrace its nonsensical absurdity. I like to think of it the same way I do Event Horizon, in that it's just pure camp and Carpenter knows it. Even if I don't feel he truly lets us in on the joke, never mind it possibly being an excuse for something that could have had the potential to be a little more substantial. I first rented Ghosts of Mars at my local Extravision years ago in the obscure horror aisle, and honestly, I think that's the perfectly fitting metaphor for the type of film that this is. It's a casual, random Friday night in with your mates, just basking in the camaraderie of escaping into a world dumb and cheesy just to have a good old-fashioned time with it. Whether it's a guilty pleasure, or so bad it's good, or you think it's genuinely great, in the vein of Carpenter's style, have fun, relax, and really enjoy the ride. Seriously, that voice is more rural than a Northern Irish accent. Hi Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and you enjoy what I do here and you want to help me to grow this channel into something more, you want to get early access, you want to vote on what the next video could be, and even get your name in the credits, please do consider heading over to Patreon, where for just a few dollars a month, you can also get access to our exclusive Discord chat, where you can tell me what you've been watching, what you've been playing, reading, share your work with me, all that fun shenanigans. And until next time, please stay very, very safe. Follow me over on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, I'll see you all very soon. Bye.